Hello again, folks. Steve here from the Inner Genie Project with a question or a thought of the day. How about we get down to business rather than mucking around with buffoonery that we've been doing for so much of our lives? I mean, our in terms of human beings in general. It seems like there's hardly a day goes by now when somebody doesn't blow themselves up or run a truck off a bridge or through people or whatever of a certain religious inclination, shall we say, and and there's not a litany of people who say, well, we just have to get used to this and so on. And to me, the gist of this conversation is, how about we just get on with having business instead of mucking around with trying to continue along this line of buffoonery that we've been doing, right? Because what is all that? What is all that nonsense that's going on in the world but state or socialism? Statism or socialism. If we believe that that's our solution, that government is our solution, then what do? I mean, if that's the ethical good is lots of statism, then how much is too much? There is no such thing as too much, right? So it's always more and more and more. So what we see now is we have kids who are in propaganda institutions from the time they're very young, 5 years old, and now many of them even younger, 3 years old and so on, being raised by parents who were indoctrinated in those socialist indoctrination camps. And how can they possibly know anything else unless they wake up and start to question it? It's all ridiculousness. So then if government comes along and says, well, you guys aren't good enough in your country, we got to bring in a whole bunch of other people into the country because somehow there's not the right mix, we got to have this whole melting pot of people who don't get along. And then when there's stuff starts happening, people running crazy, stabbing people, running people over with trucks and all that sort of thing, that's perfectly fine because that's part of the deal, right? That's what we've been told, is this all great government is our benevolence, is our only way that we can get any rights and so on. Then all this chaos going on is just part of it. It's part of the cost, right? It's like you got to pay for something. Here's the cost. I remember when I was a kid, I used to ask my dad, well, okay, this God guy is also good. What did he make the devil for? Didn't God make? Yeah, he made the devil, but that's just a mystery. We just have to live with it and so on. This is the same sort of nonsense that's being taught today, right? Is that we have this beautiful government that knows all, that it's got this queen and it's got this pomp and circumstance and all these lawyers and these honorable judges going around, and they can't do any wrong. And then you got all this chaos just flying all off the handle, just flying all over the place. And we wonder why it is. We might ask the question, like, what shouldn't we consider what we're doing? Oh, you're just racist. You don't understand. It's part of the deal. No, folks, what I'm trying to say here is it's all nuts. It's all crazy because we put our faith in the wrong side. We put our faith in collectivism, in the common good, in all that nonsense, and therefore we have to turn. If you're gonna put our decisions, our decision making processes into the hands of unknown bureaucrats, then human nature is that some of them are going to take advantage of it, and the real criminals are going to go in there. Because the real criminals want to go where they can't be touched, which is in the halls of so-called justice. They're the lawyers, the judges, the politicians, the bankers, the deep state. Those are all the intelligent criminals. That's where they are. And they want to stir up shit. They want to stir up shit because they want to attack those who produce. And the way you attack those who produce is you create all kinds of chaos, and then say to the voting masses who are not extremely intelligent, hey, vote for us and we'll give you more protections. from all this chaos, because it's actually all those producing guys who are creating the chaos, which is also a lie. It's just the whole of it is just a fucking lie right through, right from kindergarten all the way through, except for, of course, certain things they bring up to make it legitimate, like they teach a bit of math and so on. But the history, the old saying is just it's a bunch of lies agreed upon. The politics, the all this egalitarianism, that we're all equal, that men and women are equal, that races are equal, and that politics is good, and this guy should be called honorable even though he's a scumbag, and this guy should be called whatever. It's so much of it. I shouldn't say all of it, but a lot of it is, well, it's propaganda, right? That the nature of propaganda is to spin a story to make you look in a certain direction, and to have that look to be real, right? And when you start at a very, very young age, you get everybody looking there, to the point where people will be butchered in the streets, and they'll still support it. This is just classic Stockholm Syndrome, which is going on. But what I'm saying is, I'm just putting out the call, the idea here. How about we consider at least the option of sanity, of going back to forgetting about this buffoonery, of just believing lies, and get down to business, just common business, producing things and being kind to people, and being okay with honesty, being okay with people's opinions. Hey, they're just opinions, right? See, now at the point, especially the leftists, and I like to call them sinister left because that's what they are, for the most part, the ones who are violent. It's okay now to legitimize physical violence against people who have opinions. You see this over and over again. It's of course not mentioned in the mainstream media, but over and over again, physical violence against people who have opinions that are dissenting from theirs. And of course, they call themselves progressives. They call themselves, tolerant and so on. But they're extremely intolerant towards those with opinions that go counter to theirs, right? They're only tolerant of opinions that are similar to theirs or that support theirs. As soon as they're not tolerant, now they're Trump supporters, and we gotta hate them, and they're Nazis, and that gives us the right to swing bike locks in pillowcases against them with masks on our faces because they want to just present ideas, right? So my suggestion here in my call out for, please people, can we just set down the buffoonery and look at ourselves in the mirror at times? We all have these biases. We all have this buffoonery that comes up once in a while. Well, maybe not all, but I certainly have had things that have come up which I gotta go, whoa, this is ridiculous. This is not helpful. This is feeding into the propaganda mold. And just get down to business. The world is made up of makers and takers. And the more makers we can have, in my opinion, the better off we're going to be. Because if we have takers, and I don't mean takers in terms of purchasing from, but thieves, right? Either we are directly thieving or we're consuming stolen goods, right? If we're consuming tax or supporting a tax system or a system that counterfeits through central banks, or we're supporting borrowing into our children's future, and we have an option, we have the option to speak up against it, we have the option to produce that information and bring it out to people, we are a thief if we don't do that, is what I'm saying. We're either a thief or we're enabling the thievery. And if we're consuming the stolen goods willingly and we know about it, then perhaps you could say we're a little bit better, but we're not a whole lot better than the ones who are stealing it. So I think even if we take little steps towards getting back to producing, right? Even if we work government jobs, even if we're on welfare, if we can get a little step forward towards beginning to produce again in society. We begin to become more creative. We begin to live more, I would say, because that's more like real aliveness. The stealing from others, through agencies even, is like a form of suicide, because it's destroying the fabric of our societies. It's creating mistrust. It's creating division. We're taking from instead of adding to. But if we choose the route of the thievery, the mass thievery, we're choosing more government, right? We're socialists, 100%. We're joining the scourge, the great scourge of socialism. And we're imposing more rules upon ourselves. And of course, natural to that, we are adding to the terrorism. And the terrorism isn't necessarily what we see as people running through crowds with trucks. It's the whole system that has allowed that. And government in general, from my perspective, is terrorism. It is a constant civil war. And if we want to support that, then that's what we're going to have. We're going to have this continued buffoonery. We're going to continue to walk around in a constant lie that this evil over here, I'm going to call virtuous, which we know in our heart is not true. It's creating dis-ease within ourselves because we're cognitively dissonant, because we know better deep down in heart. But we'll walk around and say so anyways. We'll walk around and say, okay, I'm not supposed to steal anything, but I'll take stolen loot. And to me, the better path is to get back down to business and start to create rather than waiting for somebody else to steal for us and somehow think that that is virtuous. Steve here again, great chatting. Talk again soon. Bye for now.